Hadi. Sal bakalım bunu.
Şöyle karşıya.
Ben de geleyim ya.
Gel abi ver ona.
Sırtın Erdoğan bir şey yapalım.
400.
By and by, the wrestling will begin. But first, the wrestlers must make their ritual homage to the audience and to Allah. There are important formalities to be observed in the Turkish country life. It has, after all, been going on for a long time. It would seem to be a long way from the Anatolian plateau of Turkey and Asia to the fumes and factories of Western Europe. But to Europe, Turkish villages are an important source of industrial raw material. That is to say, they export people. These people. Two men of the village are working on the vines, for this is pruning time. Like many Muslims, they share the same given name, so we shall call them Mustafa 1, aged 34, a father of 3, a loser, and Mustafa 2, aged 30 and a father of 4. He is not a loser. They are men of God and of the soil. They hold closely to both, as did their fathers and grandfathers. Country poverty, though often decorative, is also hard and anxious. That is why the two Mustafas are going to leave it. So the two Mustafas are about to join the thousands who leave this fragile Turkish economy every year for Germany, where already more than 500,000 fellow Turks are keeping that voracious economy supplied with sinews. Another 1 million are on the waiting list. Turkey has too little money and too many people. Germany, on the other hand, has too much money and too few men. So Mustafa too goes home for his family evening, the last for a long time. All Eastern families embrace all the generations in a mutual unity of dependence. Mustafa too will very soon have to learn to live without this, without wife and son and father, everyone his own ancestor and his own inheritor, the daily kinship of the table. But the Germans will pay him 10 times what he can ever hope to get here in the village. And in a year or two, maybe, he will come back to them. Maybe. Meanwhile, Allah be thanked.
Afiyet olsun.
The villagers once used to live in these caves like troglodytes. Only in the last 30 years have they promoted themselves into houses. But there's still a long way to go. Mustafa 1 takes coffee with his father and an old friend, also for the last time, or so he thinks. Beside them, his wife and cousins make carpets. As Anatolian peasants go, they're not poor. These carpets at least bring in some cash income. Mustafa 1, therefore, is hoping to go to Germany not just for the money, but for knowledge, experience, which he can then extend to his people. The village badly needs an irrigation well. The Mustafas hope to make enough in Germany to pay for one. They think their families deserve more than they've got, this survival economy. They're not selfish men. There's another formality, the bath. No journey as momentous as this could be begun without the ritual cleansing of the body and, in consequence, the spirit.
Oraya göre, onların durumu bize göre ne biçim? Bunları kıyas ve teknik çalışmalarımızı fabrikadaki bulunan işçiler...
So the men meet in the hammam, the Turkish bath, which is their ablution, their club, their rendezvous, and now, in a sense, their Turkish leave-taking.
Nerelisiniz siz? Yozgat.
They know what they're doing. They know that they're going to be two among the 8 or 9 million foreign bodies already manning the works of industrial Europe. Mustafa, too, is worried about the coming separation from his family, and worse, his religion. Mustafa I, perhaps, already has forebodings of another kind. And now, cleansed and composed, a short walk. It is now necessary for Mustafa II to go down the village past the young ones, on his way to pay his respects to the old ones. The Muhtar's the headman. He's waiting with the Muslim Parish Council.
Allah'a ısmarladık. Ne yapıyorsunuz? Nasılsınız?
Teşekkür ederiz Zeynep.
İyi misiniz?
First there is tea.
Siz buralarda sağ senin kalın.
Kardeş isteğe bak. Evlat isteği olursa gidiyor, yoksa kardeş isteğe gidemiyor.
The Muhtar probably has a few personal tips for Mustafa. He himself did 3 years as a car body fitter in Stuttgart.
Mustafa bu ayrılıkça he?
Galiba öyle olacak.
Nereye gidecek?
The thing about Mustafa too is that he's a very pious man, not to say intensely conservative in every way. He knows his Quranic obligations, and one of his doubts today is his coming separation from Islam. In a German city, will there even be a mosque? Meanwhile, Mustafa I is in the graveyard alone, taking leave of his dead. Mustafa I, in his way, is a devout man too, but his beliefs are very personal. Mustafa I belongs to his family, the living and the dead. So it's goodbye to the Imam from Mustafa II, and goodbye to the mosque. That final, formal prayer may have to last him for some time. The drama of the village farewell. For the families of the two Mustafas, it is a very real drama indeed. It is not forever, or so everyone says. But if they prosper, will they send for their families? If they fail, will it destroy them? But first, will they even get there? The big hurdle still lies ahead. So goodbye village, goodbye poverty. All those years on the waiting list, all those forms filled in. Now begins the pilgrimage. There is much that has to be left behind, but it will endure. It's now westwards all the way through their own familiar Turkey. Turkey, once such a power in its own right. 300 years ago, the Ottoman Empire ruled from Hungary to the Caspian, from Morocco to the Indian Ocean. Like all indomitable empires, it fell and vanished. And now its two inheritors, our two Mustafas, are heading for an assembly line in Munich.
Geldi geçti de Gizli oldu Mustafa hey hey hey Düşmüşten derdi geçti Alam ki aşan ki Mustafa Bey bir beyin oldu Zor beyin oldu Zor beyin oldu.
Istanbul, Constantinople. This was where a lot of history began. But that is of less importance now than that this is the Bosphorus, the one frontier where Turkey turns its back on the east and looks to the west, where Asia ends and Europe begins. Everything now depends on what happens on the other side. That is to say, for the two Mustafas. On this ferry, the frontier for them is very big indeed. A market for fish. Fish isn't a consideration in the far Turkish hinterland, hundreds of miles from the sea. They neither eat it nor even see it. What does it cost? Already in their own land, they're strangers. There is time for one more meal at least, almost the last meal in Turkey. The last one as individuals with the dignity of choice.
Tuzla aşı gibi kapat. Çalış. Durmadan çalış.
All frontiers seem to need photographs for some reason. So be it. Now at the Labour Office, the complications begin. Now, at last, we are aware of the real multitudes involved in this traffic, from all over Turkey, all now focused in Istanbul.
Canseven, Yüksel, Canbay, Erdoğan, Çağlar, Mustafa Gündoğdu, Mustafa Doğan.
They're calling for our two Mustafas. They're summoned from the crowd to go for their medicals. This may be the tricky part, for 20% will fail.
Ali Rıza Atıcı, Şeref Ergen, İlker Okatan, Bekir Karakaya, Reşit Kalburan.
From here on, you cannot, in fact, argue yourself out of anything, not with an X-ray camera. This is the episode our first Mustafa had feared, or so we are beginning to perceive.
Gündoğan Mustafa. Gündoğan buradayken.
It seems you have to be pretty robust to be accepted by the Germans as what they call Gastarbeiter, a guest worker.
Derin nefes al. Tut nefesini. Nefes al. Tut.
So many clamour to be called, but by no means all are chosen. If you get to Germany, after all, they're going to be stuck with you on their social security, or at least something like it, whether you're a Turk or anything else. They are not investigating your intellect. They want to know if you can put in rivets and not go sick. This is very nearly the last time. It is soon going to be goodbye to the domes and roofs and windows of the book. The Mustafas cannot have it both ways, Deutsche Marks or the Prophet's Peace. In any case, they made their choice long ago in the village. This is the final indulgence. Maybe the prayers will ward off the eye of the doctor. German phrase books may be even more useful than prayers.
Ufaklar kaç para? 15 lira. Onun fiyatı yazar üzerine. Türkçe Alman. Evet, Türkçe Alman. Mesela bakın, bir şeyin fiyatını sormak. Was kostet es? Fiyatı nedir? Tamam, anlaşıldı.
Tekrar yapalım.
This is now the second stage of the German doctor's evaluation of these bodies they are hiring. They have survived the X-rays. The Germans are not looking for Olympic athletes, but they are seeking durable factory fodder.
Mustafa Doğan. Herhangi bir şey, ameliyat, yanık kırık çıkık. Geçin. Geçin. Yine.
It seems an elaborate business, but the Germans are a thorough people. For Mustafa I, this is the moment of truth, as he had feared all along.
Hier bei dem Mann, wie heißt der? Ist Nummer 2, 4, 5, 6, ja? Oben, wer ist das? Fragen Sie mal.
Mustafa Doğan.
140,90.
Mustafa II's prayers seem to have taken.
That's okay.
Mustafa Doğan.
Nee, warten Sie mal mit dem.
But this is not a good reading.
Den anderen Arm.
Mustafa I had to come all this way to find out that he's got a serious heart condition. It may not kill him for years, but he won't go to Germany.
Schauen Sie mal hin, 150,90. Trouble with his heart, yes. He has to go for the university hospital for another investigation. I can't say it exactly what's his trouble.
That is the end of the dream for Mustafa I.
Mustafa Gündoğdu.
Und das ist also Fließband oder Montagearbeit.
Mustafa too is over the hurdle. He is enlisted in the army of the proletariat. He can now sign on for his job at the BMW works in Munich. The BMW man is there to steer this Anatolian countryman in the right directions.
Daha sonra alacağınız saat başı ücreti işte göstereceğiniz başarıya göre 7 mark 60 pfennig'e kadar okuduklarınız hakkında söyleyecek bir şeyiniz var mı?
Hayır.
Anlaştık mı?
Anlaştık. Ja? Ja. Wenn Sie damit einverstanden sind, dann müssen Sie hier unterschreiben.
Eğer hepsini okumuşsanız şimdi gösterilen yere imzalayacaksınız. Bu sizin mukavelenizdir. Tamam mı canım?
Tamam. Buradan çıkıp 30 numaralı odaya gideceksiniz. Çıkışınızı aldıktan sonra.
He will be paid maybe £150 a month. But that's a lot of money for Mustafa. Life is boundless. But not so for Mustafa I. Mustafa too gives thanks that he is not as other men, or at least that Allah gave him better luck than his friend. This is where the journey that started back in the country vineyard really begins, at least for one of the Mustafas. 8 years of waiting. At the end of it, no German job for Mustafa I. No hero's return. But Mustafa too is looking ahead. He is going to the promised land, whoever's being left behind. West Europe needs them for all the dreary jobs: miners, builders, factory workers, street sweepers. They are glad to go. Turkey is not displeased to have the pressure taken off her 1.5 million unemployed. The train is now sealed. It will pass all frontiers. Whatever lies ahead, there's no turning back now. It's going to be a long ride up westward through the Balkans. A long ride for a crowd of Anatolian Turks who've barely left their own provinces before. On this first day, the zest and enthusiasm has not worn off. It's still a game. The fatigue and staleness of the train has yet to come. Whatever we may think about the social consequences of this sort of workers' migration, at least the Germans are efficient at it. They are also good at arranging for a decent supper. As yet, it's a holiday, a Turkish holiday. This frivolity is not to the taste of Mustafa. Mustafa is a great disapprover of things of the flesh. Already he's begun to withdraw. Tomorrow, in any case, will be another day. Morning in Yugoslavia, a strange and abundant land of little monasteries and flowers. Inside the train, a little religious geography. Islam enjoins the true believer to make his prayer kneeling towards Mecca. Getting a fix on Mecca is not always easy in a moving train. But God is not mocked, ritual is observed, the day is well begun. Ahead lies Belgrade, the first foreign city Mustafa has ever seen. For 500 fallow years, Mustafa's fathers ruled this Serbian land. Does he know it? Does he care? Probably not. He and the 2,000-odd Turks who travel in limbo every week, they only think about the future. Mile after mile, hour after hour. When you're killing time, you forget the certainties you've left behind. You don't even think of the chances ahead.
Ne ama böyle geliyor ha. Şimdi bir dakika. Şimdi hadi. Bir daha git. Bir daha git. Evet. Kabul. Bir daha git.
Everyone is tired now, unwashed and bored. The songs grow more nostalgic.
Hey zalim feleği dertli olmakta ne mamma bir yanda bir yandan nazlı yar burumda tüter
Evening builds up all over Europe. This Turkish village rumbles into the night.
bir yandan yokluk
Germany comes with the second dawn. This is the promised land, the urban suburbs of Munich. Settled, solid, bourgeois, prosperous. Everything the Turkish peasant is not, but Allah willing, intends to be. Every day of every week, more trains and planes bring the Mediterranean poor, the travelling armies of Turks, Yugoslavs, Portuguese, North Africans, who are now the indispensable workforce of industrial Europe. Almost 6 in the morning. Journey's end.
Dikkat! Burası Münih tren istasyonu. Sayın Türk misafir işçileri, Almanya işçileri...
From now on, they are not travellers, they are Gastarbeiter, the foreign working class. From this moment, everything will be strange and new. Language, manners, money, food, everything. It all begins in an underground bunker in the station, where they are processed and checked and introduced to the bureaucracy that is forever part of the German people machine. Mustafa will learn to live with this too. Here they are sorted out. The ones who are going on to other cities and have another journey ahead, and the ones, like Mustafa, who are staying in Munich. It's not exactly a tourist board reception, but as a welcome it might be worse. They're calling again for Mustafa. The carriage waits. The people from BMW are here to collect him. A little more paperwork, another little check for luck.
Kağıtlarınız yerinde. Size teşekkür etti. Buyurun.
Enter into Munich City, Mustafa, Turkish guest worker number 569,716. The big dispersal has begun. To Stuttgart, Cologne, Berlin, Essen, everywhere with benches to man and factories to fill. But for Mustafa, Munich is the end of the trip. Every worker arrives earmarked for a job, sometimes 50 to a factory, sometimes 1. All very new and very noisy, all very challenging, all very different to the home life of Mustafa too. He is not a man to be seduced by such excitements, but he will allow himself a little wonderment. These are the accommodation blocks where he'll live, or somewhere doubtless like it. BMW, this is where he will work and grow rich. His first day is Sunday, a holiday. And alas for Mustafa too, plunged into all he had feared of Western decadence and frivolity. Mustafa sees it all very differently from many other immigrants. His Puritan Islamic spirit is scandalized. It is a very personal reaction. To him, this is vanity. All is vanity. This would never do back on the farm. He must make a note not to be corrupted, however long he stays in this Gomorrah. The beer garden puts the lid on it. Mustafa's stern Muslim laws forbid the contemplation of the demon alcohol, let alone sloshing the stuff down by the gallon. Verily, they think otherwise in Bavaria. Mustafa leaves this delicious debauchery wearing his disapproval like a hair shirt. First day at work, first day with BMW, first day in industry for the new boy from the plains of Turkey. First lesson in the deadly disciplines of a production line that daily devours men and metal, that couldn't function without such as he. The German Meister explains it all as best he can, since he speaks no Turkish and Mustafa understands no German. The job, however, is unlikely to be intellectually demanding, although obviously different from pruning vines. Mustafa gets a hand from a fellow Turk. Turks are not scarce around here. This plant uses 17,000 workers and 11,000 are immigrants, many of them Turkish. The job will not be hard to learn, one small process among the hundreds that finally spill out cars. Repetitive, monotonous, habit-forming, and money-making. He's almost part of the machine already. The man shows him how. Mustafa will try it 3 times, and that is it. In one morning, the Turkish guest is now part of the German car industry. As with the cars, so with the meals, a conveyor belt process. There's just 20 minutes to eat, 20 minutes between one assembly line and another. There are, of course, apprehensions in Mustafa's Muslim mind. The suspicion of pork would defile him. But there are so many Turks around now that the sausage-loving Germans have come to terms with this and respect it.
Sen kaç senelik işçisin?
6 aydır işçiyim.
6 aydır. Fabrikaya yeni mi müracaat ettin?
Evet.
Yeni müracaat?
Yeni müracaat.
And so it goes on, as it will tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow, and the day after the day after. For how long? %30% of the guest workers stay more than 4 years. 60% say they want to stay forever. Some do. He started at 7, he clocks off at 2:30. Clocking off, a strange concept to a Turk to whom time means so little, now among a fanatically punctual people to whom it means so much. They even symbolize the concept of the man-machine in the famous glockenspiel clock on the Rathaus, the little nameless people marking off the hours of the day and the seasons of the year. A new pair of eyes looks at downtown Munich, the Marienplatz, the bazaar of Bavaria, and all its glossy wares. More vanity, more luxury, more fuel for Mustafa's inexhaustible capacity for disapproval. This is not Mustafa's scene. It is all very strange and a bit disquieting. But there is stranger to come. This now is extraordinary. One knew the Germans were rich, and one is learning that they are profligate. But can any people be so rich and prodigal that they can afford to waste a precious thing like water? It is indeed a different world. In Mustafa's parched and arid village on the plains, water is the stuff of life itself, to be hoarded, treasured, and prayed for. Hadn't he hoped that his savings might help to make that necessary well? Here, it seems, they can squander this invaluable stuff for no reason at all. Whose fields will it irrigate? Whose cisterns will it fill? But if it is there, one might as well use it. For the guest workers, the factory days are no worse than for the Germans, but they have no home to return to, few places to go. The Munich railway station is the big rendezvous for the foreign workers, especially Turks. Somehow the station suggests a link with home. Every station in Germany has become a Sunday club. And there's a fairly limited choice of diversions, some more diverting than others. As elsewhere, the pin-table saloons can fill up a dreary afternoon. For living it up, the Turkish guest worker must clearly go elsewhere. The Club 15 in a suburb of Munich is the national night spot for the Turks, the one relief from the factory line and the dismal hostel. Enter Mustafa in an evident mood of missionary research and at the insistence of his new friends. In these joints, the workers, so far from home, try to reproduce the virtually all-male world of the Turkish music hall. It grows too much for the chaste and decorous Mustafa, who is quickly becoming Munich's portable Muslim conscience. The festivities continue without him. It's all pretty innocent, really. The guest workers aren't part of German society, even if they're part of the German machine. All week they save for their families, live like hermits. Once a week they break loose. At least it is a change from this, the lodging where the many illegal immigrants live. 7 men sleep, exist, and pass the time in this room. It is far worse than the official company hostel, such as Mustafa enjoys, but it is also far cheaper. The place is, in fact, an abandoned railway station. The street sweepers of Munich are Turkish, and most of the navvies. The guest workers are there to do the jobs the Germans don't want. Mustafa from the village in Anatolia has a real job in a real factory. One day, Mustafa will save enough good German money to bring over his wife and family. One day. One day, he'll be able to buy his village that irrigation well. One day, he will go home to Anatolia and live to an undefiled old age. One day,